It finally happened. The DCEU is over as DC ventures into new territory for the modern comic book franchise, rebooting. Although it's a soft reboot, don't do it! Hard reboot! But those are conversations for the future. Today, again, we're mourning the DCEU, as fans know how, and that's to rank the movies. Yes, these are the tops. These are the six. Well, there's only 16 because this is the final ranking because there are no more movies coming. This list ain't gonna change in the future. I mean, I don't know. I guess time and perspective could change it, but this as the DCEU comes to a close, this is how I would rank the 16 movies that we got. And I'm excited to see your own rankings down below. All right, number 16, I think we all have the same one. Justice League, aka Justice League. Whew! Warner Brothers and Jeff Johns were in such a rush, so desperate to get their own Avengers movie, that they ripped this one from Zack Snyder's hands when Joss Whedon became available after he fell out with Kevin Feige. Who jumps on a reject? Ooh, were you just fired? Come work for me. All right, so anyway, this wasn't the movie that divided audiences from DC, but it was the beginning of the end, as toxicity entered the DCEU bloodstream, injected primarily by Jeff Johns and Joss Whedon. This poster is okay, but it's not as cool as the first Zack Snyder poster, and that's basically how you can describe the movies that go along with these posters. That first Zack Snyder poster was so cool. All right. I don't think we ever got a movie. I mean, you'll see where Zack Snyder's Justice League lands on my list. It's high up, but we never got a movie like that Alex Ross poster. All right, I don't think that James Gunn likes, he's referenced Alex Ross, but he's like a quirky, I think, DC fan. I don't know if he likes that version of DC. All right, so we'll see. Number 15, Wonder Woman 1984. Whew, sequels are hard. Even for Marvel. Marvel's having a hard time. But here, Jeff Johns struck again. This man did so much damage. He whispered in Patty Jenkins' ear. He took Patty Jenkins down. And once again, pulled the creative away from Zack Snyder, who was still a producer on this movie, but it was Zack Snyder's team who worked closely with Jenkins on the first Wonder Woman, and Patty Jenkins, I don't know if Jeff Johns was influential here or not, but Patty Jenkins decided not to invite Zack Snyder's team back. Why? Why would you change anything when the first movie worked so well? She drank her own Kool-Aid. And also, she took Wonder Woman's sword away. That was so stupid. And while Patty Jenkins was doing a nod to Heaven Can Wait, that movie featured a spirit taking over the body of someone who died. That body was up for grabs. But instead, Patty Jenkins made the fatal flaw of having Steve Trevor borrow the body of someone still alive and then gave it back to him, used. Ew. And also, Kirsten Wiig just did not work out as Cheetah. And while everyone loves Pedro Pascal today, looking back with rose-colored glasses, when the movie came out, a lot of people were not very nice to Pedro Pascal about his Maxwell Lord. I thought his Maxwell Lord was great, but it was, that was one of the many complaints that people had about the movie. But I enjoyed parts of this film a lot. It made me cry, and I thought the golden armor was awesome. And I understand intellectually what Patty Jenkins was trying to do a lot of the times here, although some of her choices are inexplicable. But it's not what anyone wanted after the first Wonder Woman movie. And I know this was part of the whole subverting expectations craze that took over Hollywood. And it's fine to surprise people, but nobody likes a bad surprise. And expectations are serious stuff. They have to be met. And if you're gonna upend them, you better be delivering with what you are giving them. And then also the VFX, I'm not sure. What are your thoughts on, subverting expectations? I think sometimes we're pleasantly surprised, but I think part of the reason this trend didn't work is that all the surprises were bad. All right, and the VFX in this movie were surprisingly awful. All right, number 14, Birds of Prey. Again, some people like this. I'm sure some of you are angrily typing right now, being like, but not a lot of people like this. And it's not, again, when it comes to expectations, it's not what any fans wanted. It's not what fans wanted for a Harley Quinn movie, and it's not what fans wanted for a Birds of Prey movie. And they were smushed together in an unwanted sandwich. It's funny because they just added Harley Quinn to the Birds of Prey in the comics, and it works because she's not the leader there. Plus, the Harley Quinn animated show is about to do a Birds of Prey Gotham City Sirens mashup that looks quite promising. Although that show's already in its 5th season, it really, is it its 5th season? I think so. Isn't that fantastic? And it's really earned its ability to take risks now. But I still think, bottom line, that while Margot Robbie definitely has her fans as Harley Quinn, she just doesn't get the character. Or any of these characters. Huntress, Cassandra Cain, Black Mask, these are those characters in name only. Black Canary showed promise, though, and Chad Stahelski was brought in to ghost direct some of the action sequences, and those were pretty cool. All right, number 13, Black Adam. How is this above Birds of Prey? Well, this movie didn't offend anyone's comic book sensibilities. It was just pointless and boring. Plus embarrassing. Whew, the hierarchy of the DC universe is about to change. That will haunt Dwayne Johnson forever. And of course, this was his bid to take over DC overall. But the very weekend, like the Monday after the movie was released, David Zaslav gave the gig to James Gunn. And James Gunn was not at all gracious to Dwayne Johnson. That was brutal. You might remember. I mean, Dwayne Johnson had trouble even accepting that this turn of events. We had to tell him some hard truths, and he finally let go. And that Henry Cavill 5-second cameo, which was used to promote the movie, and then Cavill trying to tell everyone that it meant he was back, and I was like, he's not back, and he wasn't back. So he essentially got himself fired twice as Superman. Yikes! This was DC Fast and Furious style, but I will say that Dwayne Johnson did look super cool as a superhero. The closest we've gotten to the physicality of the characters as they're portrayed in the comics. Also, even while it was a ripoff of the Evan Peters Quicksilver scenes, this one action sequence was cool. Number 12, Blue Beetle. This is a cute little movie for sure, but it was originally made to air on Max, and let's be honest, that's the way it plays. Still, it features some really nice world building, and the Reyes family was charming. And the film's representation was extremely important to the Latino community, and I feel that the movie gets it right. This, though, was when Warner Brothers had really already given up on the DCEU. And with this film, they stopped making character posters, which is a real shame. If you're going to release these movies, do it right. I mean, if there's no party, no one's going to show up. Number 11, we're almost at the top 10. Aquaman 2. As I said in my recent review, while this is a fun family adventure film, it doesn't feel like a DC movie, and it lacks dignity. We were all impressed that with the first Aquaman, Jason Momoa actually became the character. However, with this sequel, he went right back to being Jason Momoa. I mean, we don't see Aquaman here. We see Jason Momoa. All right, now we're in the top 10. Number 10, Shazam! Fury of the Gods. That's right. I thought this was a nice little movie. A very good sequel to the first film with surprisingly good VFX. I'll never forget that opening sequence in Greece with the 3 goddesses. I was like, wow, this is actually really well done. The comic book movie market, I think, is so oversaturated these days that there just isn't space for smaller entries like this. Certainly not theatrical. But that doesn't mean they're not enjoyable films. Too bad Zachary Levi imploded PR-wise with this movie because he's really good in it. Another case of a talented actor just completely KOing themselves. All right, number 9, The Suicide Squad. Yes, it's no secret, I did not care for this movie. We got into a big fight about it when it came out. I have real issues with the tone, particularly James Gunn's taste. I really dislike the depiction of Amanda Waller, and I really thought it was distasteful. I don't care what her reasoning is, that Harley Quinn went on a date with her kidnapper. But on the flip side, to be fair, I really loved Polka Dot Man, Ratcatcher, phenomenal. Plus, the fight between Rick Flag and Peacemaker, not only was that visually interesting, but dramatically intense, with really interesting political discourse as well. This movie spawned the Max series Peacemaker, which is getting a season 2, and led to James Gunn taking over DC. That's a pretty big deal. We'll see if Gunn really does have range, because this is R-rated Guardians of the Galaxy. And I gotta say, Superman Legacy so far is looking like Superman Guardians of the Galaxy. I just hope that he has range. I'd love for him to have range. All right, number 8, Man of Steel. While this isn't the version of Superman that I like the most, when the movie came out, I did think it was interesting. I mean, though, really, Henry Cavill was born to play evil Superman, which is why Batman v Superman works so well. This is the movie, though, that started the DCEU and won over a legion of die-hard fans that exist to this day. So that's got to count for something. Plus the Feora fight, that was awesome! Loved it. So cool. All right, number 7, Suicide Squad. Whew, what a mess. But it changed many of these characters forever. Primarily Harley Quinn. With this look, I know I didn't like this look at first, but it became wildly popular. Adapted in the comics and animation and propelling the character beyond comic book fandom to worldwide fame. You know, I had infamously said that I didn't think anyone was going to dress like this Harley Quinn for Halloween, but she became, Halloween is often like everyone can dress a little bit more risque than they normally would. And Harley Quinn, this version of Harley Quinn is like that personified. So kudos to David Ayer and Margot Robbie in the costume and makeup department for coming up with this. Joker, though, didn't fare as well. This was the beginning of the end for Oscar winner Jared Leto. Plus, Deadshot has been changed. I mean, Will Smith has been having his own issues, of course, lately, but Deadshot has been changed in a lot of the comics as well after this movie. And the upcoming Suicide Squad kills the Justice League. A lot of strong opinions about this game as well, but clearly it's built very much off of this Suicide Squad film. The visuals here are so strong that even though the movie is absolutely awful, we just can't let it go because the visuals are really just still so cool. All right, number 6, Shazam, the first Shazam. Remember when we all loved Shazam? I do. Pepperidge Farm remembers. This was a great movie with heart and humor that really captured fans' imagination. Plus, Warner Brothers let the movie get dark, which was awesome. It got dark, like in terms of action, but also, like when Billy goes and sees his birth mother, that was Walter Hamada's idea. That was really powerful. I mean, this was also one of the few DC movies that really captured the essence of the comic that it was adapting, which again, fans appreciated. They were like, oh, that's different for DC movies. Number 5, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. While many of us loved this movie, myself included, unfortunately, this is the one that first divided the fandom and shook Warner Brothers' confidence in Zack Snyder's ability to steer the franchise. Sure, it made a lot of money, but the Rotten Tomatoes score was awful, and the fan scores weren't great either. I mean, again, I loved it, but I still can remember, I can still see it, running up to a group of friends after I'd seen it to discuss the movie, and to my surprise, finding out they genuinely hated it. Like, it's not like they didn't get it, or they were being haters. They just really didn't like it. Maybe it's too artistic. Maybe it takes too many risks, but I think it's genius. That's interesting. That reminds me of some of the female filmmakers, like Julie Taymor when she did that Spider-Man play. I liked that too. I thought that I could appreciate that. I appreciate people's bold swings, but a lot of people don't. And I think this is another of those cases. But that warehouse fight, I mean, that was Batman, right? Plus, I never realized that Bruce and Clark's mother have the same name, and I have been reading Batman and Superman comics almost my entire life. So I thought that was a really clever reveal, but boy, was that laughed at. This was also when we first got to see the DC Trinity in live action. I mean, I know the Doomsday was awful, but for a brief shining moment, it was glorious to be a DC fan. Little did we know. Well, I kind of started to see what was happening as, I saw people react to that film. But yeah, that was the last great DC moment for the DCEU. All right, well, not totally. I mean, because you'll see I have a couple of movies that are higher up that I think on my list that came out afterwards, but that was when it was like the best. That's when everybody was the most jazzed. All right, number 4, and everybody at first when the trailers were coming out was with us. You could actually, look at us reminisce. I think the turning point was when they showed too much, when they showed Doomsday in that trailer, and everyone had a very negative reaction to how he looked. You could just feel like the movie, the attitude towards the movie shift. And I think that if you could, it's so weird that you can pinpoint when people turned on something. And I think that was it. All right, now, what do you think? All right, number 4, the first Aquaman, the only DCEU movie to make $1 billion, but nobody ever remembers that. This was DC's Avatar, a warm escape during the holiday season. It filled the space of Avatar, Star Wars, Spider-Man. Aquaman was in that group. James Wan delivered incredible visuals, including detailed world building, and they were just an absolute delight on the big screen. I saw that twice in theaters, once in IMAX, and it was very, very fun. That gladiator fight in the arena, incredible. The first Aquaman was a good old winter blockbuster and delivered as such. Number 3, The Flash. That's right, I liked it. I know that most people hated it, like really, but I think there are some of us who really appreciated this film, and I suspect as time passes, our numbers grow. But yeah, the drama outside of this film in real life when it was released was something else. And, you know, Ezra Miller's behavior was indeed quite troubled and concerning. But I think that aside, when you just look at his performance, I think his dual performance here is actually quite brilliant. And I found it very funny. I thought it was hilarious and heartfelt. Plus, what a celebration of DC. That's what I really like about this movie. And not just bringing back Michael Keaton or the big sequence at the end celebrating, let's say, ghosts of DC past, although some of you found that very offensive, which I think was an important note for Warner Brothers to write down, or anyone who thinks they can reanimate with technology actors who have passed away. I think audiences really don't like that, so I would caution Hollywood against that, no matter how good the technology might get. But I felt that Miller's Barry Allen truly lived in the world of DC. From that great Justice League opening, I loved that, to teaming up with Elseworlds versions of Batman and Supergirl. And then George Clooney at the end, I thought that was the perfect cherry on that sundae. Of all the DCEU movies, to me, this one was the most DC, and a celebration of DC and a celebration of the DCEU. It made me truly feel like I was in that world and that anything could happen. It was a very hopeful movie, I felt. And I just thought it worked, for me at least. Again, I acknowledge that many people absolutely hated this film. Have you changed your mind about The Flash, maybe? Kind of? A little? All right, number 2, Zack Snyder's Justice League. That's right, it's not number 1, but it's number 2, it's runner-up, and we'll talk about my number 1 in just a moment. But yes, this movie was not only worth the wait, but worth the fight. That was incredible. What a time. And also, what an opus, and that's really what this is. Not only did all the problems of Justice League melt away, but Zack Snyder's 4-hour movie blossomed in unexpected ways. That was really cool to see. The 2 worst characters in Justice League, Flash and Cyborg, became the best in this version. Cyborg, the situation with him and his father, made me burst into tears when I was talking about it in my spoiler review. I was so moved. The movie's also funny, and also it's incredibly epic with very, again, I like the experimental bold swings. I thought this depiction of the Flash and the use of his powers was super cool. I loved it. Really, really interesting stuff. You truly could see Zack Snyder's vision, not just for this movie, but for these characters and for DC going forward, even if it wasn't for everybody. All right, then that leaves number 1, Wonder Woman. Yep, that's right, the best one, in my opinion. Why is that? Because it's short and sweet. It feels like Wonder Woman, it feels like DC, and general audiences loved it. We got everything, huzzah! Similar to Barbie. This is interesting. I was in shock that it actually worked, because you would think, just like you wouldn't think you could do a good Barbie movie, all the pitfalls in Hollywood, right? You don't think you would be able to do Wonder Woman either, but yet they did both. But everything with Wonder Woman came together just right. The mascara, amazing. The idea to put Wonder Woman in World War I, sure, it was ripping off Captain America, but they picked, they focused on World War I, and I gotta say it worked. I really liked it. The action was incredible, and they had just the right balance with Wonder Woman, which is hard to do. Even the comics can't always get it right. She wasn't too soft, but she wasn't too hard either. And she was a real person. They gave her a real personality. I mean, the Gal Gadot casting, at least for the first film, was perfect. It was like Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. You're like, that is Wonder Woman. And Alan Heinberg, God bless him, we really missed him on the sequel. He was the screenwriter here, and he had the brilliant idea to really do an homage to The Little Mermaid. And when you think about it, Barbie shares a lot of those same similarities, fish out of water. And also like Barbie, Barbie had Ken. Wonder Woman Steve Trevor had a huge role here, helping to give the movie broad appeal. Oh, it's so interesting to compare these films. Chris Pine and Ryan Gosling, in fact, have a very similar vibe. Gal Gadot was as good as Wonder Woman as Margot Robbie was as Barbie. Both actresses are those characters. It's incredible. Too bad for Wonder Woman, it all fell apart with the sequel. Whew, beware this warning, Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie. I don't know if they looked at Wonder Woman as a model at all for Barbie. When you think about it, maybe they did. But then I would definitely do a deep dive on Wonder Woman 1984 for what not to do. All right, so that's my final, it's done. DCEU Top 10. Bring on the Gunverse. Let's see, hang on, baby. It's gonna be a ride no matter what. Again, be sure to share your own rankings down below. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.